Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Why Did I Lose? The Prismata series, in which I look at games from viewers, replays submitted by viewers, and tell you why I think you lost. This set comes to us from Redditor AJPiano2, who mentions it was a huge high economy game with some big units. There were a lot of decisions. We probably made a lot of mistakes. There'd be a lot to look at. Great. So I looked at the replay, and in fact, as I mentioned in the last episode, this is the second of two Why Did I Loses that I'm having to re-record, having messed up the recording for the first attempt. So I've in fact seen this set before. I've seen how it played out for me, and for the players in the replay. But we can, it's like the set doesn't look right at all. I forgot to load the random set units. Okay. Load from replay. Here we go. I think I did this last time too. I know there's one video where I forgot to load the random set units. I don't know if it was one that I actually succeeded in recording or not. So what's going on here? Like, these two units at the bottom here are sort of big defenders. And Centurion is just such a strong unit that in almost every set where it exists, you can get to it. And it's worth doing so. Maybe in like super rushy stuff with like Electivores and Grimbotches, you just like can't get there. But most of the time, Centurion is good against a rush because as soon as you get it down, like the rush is doing almost nothing. And Infusion Grid here helps with getting to the Centurion. Additionally, there's a nice cheap blue attacker that you can build first while you're sort of like, you don't really want to actually attack the opponent yet because they have Absorb, but wouldn't it be nice to get some pixies you can use once you're past the Absorb barrier? You can build that while you're still saving up most of your money for the Centurion and so on. And Lucina, a big red unit, loves being behind big attackers in high economy games. You can't buy Lucina in a lot of rushy sets because you have to save up so much money, you have to make such a big tech investment, and then if you're cutting a bunch of other stuff to do that, then you don't have the defense to protect her. But in high econ games with big absorbers, you would often like to get the Lucina or something like that, the Tatsus or whatever, behind your big absorber. So that sort of describes an outline for all of these things to get to a high econ. How are we going to spend? Like, here's the thing, though. We're going to have at least one Conduit, at least two Last Forges, at least two Animuses. How are you going to spend all that tech? You could spend green on Venge Cannons, but if you do that, you're losing a lot of drones, and it's going to become harder to spend your other tech, so it's probably not something you'll do a ton of. You could maybe do one and use it as a green sink to like click it if you get too much green. That's kind of a cute way to, but like you only have one green. The real problem is spending your blue, blue, red, 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 red. Blue sort of all costs you. The other green sink here is Borehole, right? If you can find time to buy a Borehole Patroller instead of like walls or grids, then you can also spend your green that way. You're probably spending most of your blue on grids, ideally, and walls if you have to. And then, so that's like $10, plus a bit more if you're spending green somehow. And to spend all your red, well, there's really no cheap way to do that. Ferret and Sack doesn't really count, because it's just trading an Overtech problem this turn for an Overtech problem 2 turns from now. And it's going to be a harder one, because blue is more expensive to spend than red, generally. You can't buy that many Oxide Mixers. There's only 4 after all. So, to spend your red, you're mostly going to be clicking Lucina, clicking Perforators, hopefully, but probably you'll have to defend with them, and building a couple Tarsiers. So that all sort of fits. Like, that's an amount of gold you can get per turn, enough to spend all this tech, just barely. So my expectation here is we don't really want that much green this set, right? The only green unit you really want is Centurion. So you can put off building the Conduit for quite a while if it lets you do something else productive. Specifically, like getting down to Blast Forge earlier, building Oxide and Infusion. Those are both units you'd like to get early. So that's my plan, is to go for 3rd Engie into High Econ, into Blast Forge, into like Mixer Grid. And the other interesting question, actually, is whether you get the Lucina before or after the Centurion. It'll sort of depend on how much pressure the opponent is putting on. But here's the thing, like, nobody's building any real attack before the Centurion or the Lucina, probably, right? You're going to be building Oxide Mixers and Grids with your other tech. So when you do build the Centurion, it's kind of going to just block nothing if you build it first. I think both players should build a Lucina first and then a Centurion. That seems better to me, because otherwise the Centurion's kind of wasted. So let's show what that looks like. And see what weird build Masterbot comes up with to make me have to deviate. Is he going to let me build a grid, or do I have to build a wall? Okay, wall. But we just want to keep droning. Don't build too much tech. You need a lot of drones, and you need low tech obligations. You don't want to have to be spending your money on drones. On tech, like, you don't have to spend gold on you don't want to be tied to having more tech, because that means you'll have to spend more of your money on things that aren't drones, right? Here's probably a fine time to get the conduit, since we're a bit low on like ways to spend gold, and it's not too far away from Centurion time. He's making me lose a bunch of engineers, so let's just replace those. Can I triple drone next turn? Triple drone is 9. Oxide Mixer is 12. Could I get the Lucina yet? No. There's still like 5 more drones to buy, right? Oh, that's a point, right? There are 6 drones. If I buy a 3rd engineer, I can buy them out in 2 turns instead of 3. That seems good to me. I'd like to do that. And the engineer will be useful to defend with anyway, right? So we build all these drones, we build our Oxide Mixer finally. Now what? I have a bit too much money, don't I? Ah, no, here's an idea. I can build an Animus. Next turn I want to buy an Animus, right? For the Lucina. And I want to build 2 Tarsiers. That's 6, 18. Leaves me with $9. I'd like to buy all the drones in that time. But then I'm not spending my blue. Maybe I was wrong to get this 3rd engineer. Should have just been content to buy out the drones a little more slowly. Maybe I was wrong to get this conduit just yet? No, conduit feels about right. Well, okay, maybe I'll just have to float a blue on one of these turns to make sure I get the Lucina going. Okay. So, we're buying 14 in red stuff. Leaves me 13. I can buy all the drones. Minus... Oh yeah, and an Oxide Mixer. That seems fine. What was I worried about? So we get 2 Tarsiers, we get an Oxide Mixer, we get all the drones, and we get an Animus. Next turn, we can Lucina, plus build a little defense, maybe with wall or something. It's 22. Get that last Blast Forge for the Centurion turn. I guess I need a force field as well, huh? Alright. Blast Forge, grid? Fits pretty well, doesn't it? And notice we're going straight from 0 attack to 6 constant attack and 3 pixies, right? Really making the opponent's absorb not useful. Now, of course, you know, Masterbot did well to not really build any absorb until the Centurion turn, at which point he built enough. But we're actually already, like, killing something, right? 5, 7... Yeah, he loses a patroller this way. So he attacks for 8, which is 5. Yeah, so we do need to click the grid. Fine. Probably just build some NGs, right? Did I spend all my red last turn? I clicked Lucina as 1. I built a Tarsier as 2. I built Centurion as 3. I clicked a grid as 4. Yes, I did. Good. We don't need to click this Perforator since an even number of damage is good against this. He has to lose all the boreholes. We can just build more Tarsiers. I don't need to click the grid, but it might be convenient to do so. Maybe build 1 grid and a patroller. Seems alright. So, of course, Masterbot is now going to lose this game. He's miles behind. And as I've said on previous episodes, this is not evidence that what I've done is correct necessarily. Would it have beaten a good player? Maybe, maybe not. But I hope it gives you an outline of... let's see. Yeah, we do want to click this. And these, I guess. An outline of what, you know, the game ought to look like. What I think is a reasonable build for this set. Yeah, he gives up. So, like, Lucina first and blue first are sort of key points for this game. Okay, we'll claim the victory here and look a little bit in the replay. Don't try to avoid building a Centurion when it's not doing anything. Don't build the conduit first if you don't actually need a lot of green. Here, there were much better ways to spend blue than to spend green. And I avoided my Lucina running into a Centurion and doing no damage. I mean, here we run into Centurion, but her attack isn't getting absorbed, right? These two Tarsiers combine to make this attack at least do something. And then we finally build the blue. So I like this build here. So let's see what the players did. And of course, as I've told you, I'm recording this the second time. I've already seen the game, but I think it will be instructive. There's certainly plenty of mistakes, as the viewer suspected that there might be. So first, 2 drones. Yep, pretty normal. 2 drones, NG. Yes, everyone is going along with the NG plan. 3rd NG plan, that is. Opponent builds conduit first, which is fine. As player 2, green is perfectly fine in this set. You don't want to float 4 gold just so you can get a Blast Forge next turn and like continue floating 4 gold. Getting a couple of green is well worth it. Player 1 here mirrors the conduit, which I do think is wrong, and I've explained why. You just want very little green this set. Player 2 is getting it because he has to. You, as player 1, don't have that problem. You could get a Blast Forge first, and there's plenty of stuff you want to buy. You know, 1 Infusion Grid and several Oxide Mixers are all great things to buy. Maybe a 2nd grid if the opponent attacks you soon, but you don't really expect that. When you are going for a high economy approach, it is good to have tech that you don't want to be... Building too much tech can be an encumbrance, right? Because you really are sort of obligated to spend it all. Green is the exception because you can just save it, right? but you don't really want to save up green generally. Like you'd like your green to be as low as possible most of the time. You'd like to make productive use of your green. So here, there's nothing like really amazing worth saving up a bunch of green for. And you're not even really going to be incrementally spending your green. You just want like the Centurion. And then after that, it's a question of like, how do I get rid of this crappy green I've got? And similarly, or rather another argument for going blue first is that there's a ton of cheap blue that you actually want as much as you can get of both of these units, right? And it's cheap enough that it won't hamper your droning. That's important, right? And as I showed, right, I think he made me buy a wall, but like against this, you would get an oxide mixer probably, and then a grid. Maybe get the grid first so your opponent can't make you buy a wall. It could go either way. I'm not sure. I don't think the opponent should make you get a wall, but maybe if you build an oxide mixer, you leave them a chance to take advantage of you a little bit by building like a single Gauss cannon or a tantalum ray or something. Probably tantalum ray, yeah. That you might want to wall against, or they'll pick off an engineer or something. So I think that blue first into grid would be better. Don't give them a chance to poke you. Then the oxide mixer train starts. Anyway, let's move on. The other guy gets a blast forge, of course. Oh yeah, I forgot this turn. So I think this is this the biggest mistake of the game? I've seen the future, of course, remember. And I think that this is the turn that I came back to as the biggest mistake. You have 18 drones. You could build a 19th, and there are 26 available to you, right? But you've just made yourself obligated to spend a lot of tech in a big hurry. You aren't going to have money left for drones. How much money does it cost to spend all of this every turn? You know, maybe you can buy a borehole patroller with these is 6, and 2 Tarsiers with the Animus is 8 more for 14. You only have $4 left to keep droning with. That's not enough. You want to buy every single drone in this game, and you don't want to just buy them one at a time. You're not gonna be able to get these big units. You can maybe get one of them, like you can get a Centurion this way, but you'll be a bit over-teched then because you'll have built another blast forge, which is like more tech you have to spend. You need 18 gold to buy a Centurion, and you can get 18 gold with fewer than 18 drones. Like sometimes you buy your first Centurion with, I don't know, 16 or 17 drones. But the Centurion costs so much tech that if you buy it with fewer drones than that, you're generally over-teched. You'd often like to have many more drones than this when you buy a Centurion. And this is such a slow set with like Oxide Mixer as the only real attacker. Well, Lucina, of course, a very big attacker. But she's another high econ unit. How are you going to buy Lucina on a turn when you spend all the rest of your tech? Right, so I guess, like here, you could throw in a Centurion and, like, be sort of able to spend all your tech. You could do it. A borehole patroller, a grid or something, a couple Tarsiers, that works. But if your ambition is to get a Lucina and a Centurion, you're going to have another Animus and another Blast Forge on top of this. And to spend all that money every turn, you need, like, high 20s in the number of drones. Probably even more, but Lucina lets you spend the red a bit more cheaply. So, but the point is, we just don't have enough drones to start building attackers yet. It's too soon. We need to buy all the drones and just build as little tech as we can get away with while doing that. And we built the grid in 2 Tarsiers, and we're still not droning. We've decided 18 is enough. I'm going to buy that Centurion. I think that is definitely a mistake. You don't want to buy Centurion when the opponent is not attacking, right? Centurion, if this unit said 18, green, green, blue, blue, red, start a turn, gain 2 attack, doesn't block. Like, would that be a good unit? It would be awful. It would be disastrous. Worst unit in the game, right? The whole point of Centurion is to absorb damage. and he builds some attack for you as well, which is great, but like that's not the point. When you build him here, he's not doing his job. And in exchange for getting him, you're still not building any more drones. You were already defended, right? This grid is doing a great job at keeping the opponent from threatening to hurt you. So build more attackers if you're stopping off this soon. At this few drones. Build more attackers. But okay, the enemy gets their Lucina first. Well done. I said that should work. I think, though, this wall, kind of a bummer. Like, definitely you do build it here, but you sort of wish that one of these oxide mixers had been a grid, right? Did you ever have a chance to do that? Yeah, the first one could have been a grid, I guess. But then he couldn't have built so many drones. Maybe that's the answer. Is this turn, cut one drone to turn this mixer into a grid. Then it'll be there in time to protect the Lucina, and you won't have to build a wall. And you can, like, build some more drones or something later. We're now... yeah, what a turn, huh? We're now feeling over-teched. So we're building ferret and sacks, delaying the problem but not fixing it. And we're making the problem worse with a second Animus. It's just never... Oh, right. And also... I remember a problem happening. Yes. This turn here, we built the Centurion. Wait, no, the turn before. When did we build Centurion? Here he is. We should have clicked the grid. We floated some red. And if you're not absorbing on Infusion Grid, then it's strictly better to have 4 husks, because it's the same amount of defense but more granular. The only reason you would usually prefer not to click grid is because it absorbs for 3, and it doesn't absorb if you make it into husks. But you only get 1 absorber, and here it's Centurion. So click this, and you'll have better defense for the rest, for the near future. We don't really get another chance to click the grid anytime soon, although, you know, cutting one of these ferret sacks would be good news. And I would say, at this point, that AJPiano has already lost, right? It's just hopeless. All of the, you know, the enemy is not attacking, but they have a Lucina, they have several more drones, they have a bunch of pixies lying around to sort of counteract... I don't know, I guess the pixies sort of cancel with all of our extra grids, I guess. But by committing to this Animus, AJPiano is saying, I'm going to continue not spending my blue. Continue wasting resources, and, you know, not build attackers this turn. If we cut the Animus and these ferret sacks, we could have at least built some Tarsiers. And, you know, start building some attack. By delaying, we're just continuing to let the enemy get good absorb value. Yeah, they kill all this stuff. I wonder... This was the wrong number of pixies to click, right? It should have been 3 pixies? Yes. If you click 4 pixies, you let him lose an infusion grid, which like, is great because it's not as granular. If you click 3 pixies, he has to lose all 3 engineers and keep both grids, which is a less flexible way to defend. And then you can maybe later find some exploits by clicking inconvenient numbers of pixies. Right, clicking a pixie to kill an engineer is, like, generally always good. Clicking it to let your opponent turn non-granular defense, like defense grid, into granular defense, in a way, or, you know, make use of their non-granular defense. Well, okay, let's look at it this way. If you click 3 pixies, they're losing 3 engineers. Sounds good. Clicking a 4th pixie lets them turn their defense grid into 3 engineers, sort of. Now, of course, that's a bad deal for them. It costs them a health. but in exchange, you're also giving up a pixie. So you're letting them use their defense grid as if it were granular defense, instead of making them lose their granularity. So this is a slight mistake here. What other mistakes do I think this player has made? I pointed out that they should have gotten a grid earlier. Overall, everything looks fine from them otherwise, though. One of those two oxide mixers should have been a grid. They timed the Lucina pretty well. You could argue for building an Animus first and more drones, which is what I did, and then the second Animus and the Lucina. But this seems fine. You're a little bit over-teched still. Would prefer to have 27 drones instead of 22, but it's not the end of the world. I think yeah, this guy's not really attacking you for much. You could have squeezed in a grid and some more drones earlier, and you'd be in a better spot. But okay, so we do this. We built the Lucina, and we're now clicking her, building Tarsiers, boreholes, and clicking the grid. Sure, I guess. The boreholes strike me as a bit greedy, but I guess we do need to put on some pressure or we're going to lose. And so grids might be just taking it a little too easy. The fact that these ferret and sacks are just lying around is kind of like good evidence that we shouldn't have built them. And, you know, which backs up my claim about having not enough drones. And we're going to start having trouble defending soon, which I guess is why this patroller should have been grids. Yeah. We're immediately having to lose the patroller, and so it's sort of like 6 and a green, 6 green blue, deal 2 damage, soak for 2. Which is not really any better than an infusion grid. It's arguably worse. Certainly worse than grid plus force field. So I think these patrollers were just like the wrong idea. But we're sort of losing anyway, so sure, why not, I guess. Try to put on some attack pressure. And we built another ferret and sack, which, like, couldn't use the first two. Probably don't need more. And the mistakes at this point don't, like, really matter all that much. The enemy has way, way more attack. And they're actually building Venge Cannons, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it's the right idea, but yeah, I mean, AJPiano is having a lot of trouble defending, so sure. This is preventing us from ever attacking with our perforators. And shockingly, we seem to be actually spending our tech somehow. On what? Oh, wall and grid, of course. Huh. Ah, and spending the red on perforator clicks. So, Sublimation has sort of concluded, look, I'm not over-teched anymore. I'm actually over-droned. Because I'm spending all my red on clicks, and like I can spend this 2 blue with just $10. What do I need 20 drones for? Let's make some of them into Venge Cannons. That's a cool transition. I don't know if it's necessarily right, but it sure does put this guy in a really tough spot. So I would say both players under-droned a bit here. AJPiano did it more. And yeah, I mean, like, I think the Lucina was still a little bit early. We should have gotten some more drones and then the Lucina. And we would have liked to have a grid lying around instead of all these oxide mixers. But overall, like, this, you know, we built too much tech and not enough drones. Well, this is the right amount of tech eventually, but we built it too soon. We built the Centurion too soon, because we weren't really being attacked. And you know, a couple small mistakes here and there, like not clicking the grid when it was free to do so. Building green first when blue first is better. You know, trying to get out of overteching with Ferret and Sack is like bad, but not really what caused the problem. The problem was being overteched to begin with. This oxide mixer is like hopelessly optimistic. It's a very, very slow attacker that you want to build early, not late. You would much rather have wall or grid or something. Why did we build it? Because we just were out of money. Wanted to spend our blue. We clicked 2 ferritin sacks to build an oxide mixer. Interesting. Well, I guess we clicked a ferritin sack to build a wall. Oh, 2 walls. Then we said, never mind, let's cut 1 to build a force field, 2 force fields and an oxide mixer. I guess. I mean, the oxide mixer is clearly never gonna, like, help, but he wanted to avoid wasting blue. Admirable. But, you know, we're sort of dead anyway, it doesn't matter, so try the oxide mixer, I guess. The real mistakes came earlier in the game. Turn 4, I don't like the conduit. As I mentioned, it could have been... You could, you know, if I saw a good player build a conduit, I'd be surprised, but like maybe they have a cool plan that involves more vengeance later, so sure. Tantalum Rays are a pretty okay green sync too. I'd prefer to build blue first here. This turn, clear mistake. We talked about that. Don't need the tech, do need the drones. Here, we're setting up for Centurion too soon. Okay, so I'm just sort of repeating myself here. I've explained all the big ideas of this game and the most prominent mistakes that were being made. So I hope that was instructive for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.